If you want to learn about Islam and the Quran, you should watch this video.
He is Allah, that there is no God worthy of worship except for him, the King, the Holy, the one free from all defects, the giver of security, the watcher over his creatures, the mighty, the compeller, the supreme. Glory be to him, glory be to God. High is he above all that they associate as partners with him. He is Allah, the creator, the inventor of all things, the bestower of forms. To him belong the best names. All that is in the heavens and the earth glorify him, and he is the Almighty, the All-Wise. So these are, I would say, potentially the two best verses that summarize for us.
Yeah, so it's an attempt to use a multiplicity of virtues to define a supreme source of good.
Learning is necessary for the realization of God, for religious and spiritual development. Learning increases one's consciousness. It enables one to understand the deeper realities, to enrich oneself from the experiences of others, and to elevate one's intellectual level.
We believe
So,
that.
and so what purpose does that serve in a discussion with someone like me?
What it will do, hopefully, because we believe the Quran has divine qualities itself. The Quran itself has divine qualities. So we believe, number one, it's a cure. We believe it's actually a physical cure as well as a spiritual cure. We believe that it's a guidance. We believe that it's something which will literally put you in a psychological state of ease. So in a sense, what it will do, it hopefully, will have an effect on you, which is physiological, maybe psychological. And in a sense, it's like giving you something to taste rather than explaining what it tastes like.
So if we need a God to believe in to preserve morality and decency amongst humanity, then let's have a God that people actually fear and respect. And that's why Islam is the only religion left on the planet. There's no other religion you can possibly name that even matters.
Tell me what led up to your conversion, if you would, and why did you move away from Christianity or Buddhism or all the things that you were exposed to?
Forming the mind, changing the mind. In Arabic, it's the idea of turning. And so there's this idea that the heart turns towards disobedience and then it has to turn back towards obedience. And so that turning, one of the names of God is Tawwab in Arabic, which means the off turning, the one who turns back when you turn to God, God turns to you. And so this idea of turning back to God is very important. And the Prophet Muhammad, he taught us actually to do this at least 70 times a day. So Muslims as a practice actually ask forgiveness, preferably at least 70 times a day, just saying astaghfirullah. It's something that we do as a spiritual practice. And part of the reason why we pray 5 times a day, the Prophet ﷺ was once asked about a man who lives next to a river and he goes into it and he washes 5 times a day. He said, do you think that you would see any filth on him? And they said, no. And he said, that's what prayer is. It's like washing, it's like bathing in a river 5 times a day. And the idea is about really turning back to God, because these gifts that we've been given, these 7 limbs that we have been given are gifts from God that should be used in good.
Without learning, one can neither study the sacred books, nor can one be aware of the history of man and the universe. In short, learning brings man from the level of the animals to the level of human beings. Therefore, learning is an essential component of Islam. However, this is possible only when one meets others with open minds, when one tries to learn from them instead of always wanting the others to learn from oneself.
They have a higher purpose and a higher calling. I do think a lot of the world's problems, especially in the West, with the absolute degeneracy and the work of, what do you say, shaitan?
Shaitan, yeah.
The work of shaitan?
Shaitan.
It could be fixed with Islam.
Honestly,
I call for the Islamification of all Western countries because Christianity has absolutely and utterly failed. The idea of a religion is to preserve the morality and preserve the traditions of a country.
Exactly.
If you have failed to do that, then you're no longer a religion. If you're going to sit there and inside of your own country, your prophets are mocked, all of your ideals are ignored.
And it's okay.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And society is degenerating in real time, and your children are no longer safe from brainwashing by the Matrix, then your religion in and of itself as a concept has failed. Christianity has failed to preserve Christian values on any level in any country ever.
See how there can be an absence of an absolute unifying value that's superordinate to all other values without society degenerating into conflict, without people becoming anxious and confused and aimless, without the consequences being that we all miss the mark. So I guess I'd like your comments about that idea.
I don't think God's something that we posit. I think, and I also certainly don't think God is a value. I think that we respond to God, and that God makes a call, and that call is through these intermediaries. And the prophets, the Quran says in the chapter called the Bee, that there's no nation that hasn't been given warners that say, shun idols and worship God. And so
I wasn't trying to, what would you say, reduce God to a human value.
But a lot of people do. I mean, that's a very common modern way of viewing God. Yeah. And the Prophet Muhammad said, faith is to believe that there's only one God, and that Muhammad, which includes all the previous messengers, is a messenger of God, to believe in angels, to believe in the books that God has revealed, to believe in the last day, the day of judgment, and to believe in the measuring out of good and evil, that good and evil is part of life. And then he said, tell me about Islam. And he said, Islam is that you make the testimony of faith, that you pray 5 times a day, that you fast Ramadan, that you pay zakat, the 2.5% of your standing wealth at the end, not your income tax, but your standing wealth at the end of a year, that's a whole year, 1/40th is given to poor people. There's 8 categories that are given in the Quran. And that you, if you're able to, you make a pilgrimage once in your lifetime to Mecca.
And the Imam gave a very beautiful khutbah. It touched me, mashallah. When I went to him after the salah and asked him, because he started telling me about Islam, you know how our da'wah goes. You know, Islam is built on 5 pillars and 6 beliefs. And I said, look, I just want to know, do you have some proof? You know, like where is the proof that your religion is what you say it is? And he smiled. So he went and pulled a book off the shelf and he handed it to me. And my first proof handed to me about the deen of al-Islam was the Quran. And then he started to tell me about the Quran, you know, that it was revealed to the Prophet. I said, look, no. I've already had people try to pre-sale me. You know, he's trying to load me up to go read this Quran with a certain frame of mind. I said, no, don't do that. Let me read this book. If it is what you say it is, it'll prove itself. Amount of certainty that I had that if God had a religion, it would be clear, crystal, for someone who was searching.
And he said, ihsan is to worship God as if you see God. And if you don't see him, at least you know that he sees you. So you have an awareness of that there is a divine presence, and you should be in a state of awareness in your behavior. I mean, one of the things about, you know, if you're driving and everybody's speeding and then somebody sees a cop, they all suddenly slow down. You know, I have a friend once who just zoomed past the cop when everybody slowed down, and he pulled him over. And he said, why didn't you slow down? He said, I felt like a hypocrite. So the guy, he let him go. But, you know, that's people when they're in the presence of authority, they tend to behave well, unless they're an utter rebel. I mean, there are those people.
I'm trying to figure out how to be a Jew and a Christian and a Muslim at the same time.
But become Muslim, that's the best way, because the beauty of Islam is you get the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Last Testament. I mean, that really is, for me, even the Jews acknowledge this, because Islam in many ways is a universalized Judaism. It's Judaism for the Gentiles. We have the mikvah, you know, they do ghusl, we have ghusl. I mean, you know, which is the ritual, the baptism, a total immersion in water ritually to purify yourself, which is done at least once a week.
And I think I understand the claim in some sense psychologically. And I think the notion that the free word, the free truthful word is the fundamental redeeming force. I believe that's true. I think it's true literally, and I think it's true metaphorically, and I suspect it might be true religiously, although I'm not exactly sure what that means. And
why do you think that the same argument that you put forward in relationship to the generation of the universe can't be put forward as an objection in relationship to God?
Some people that have been misguided, that do have evil and hatred, and they are lovers of this life. They're not really followers of our religion, because our religion promotes peace and submission to one God. And it's in the name. Salam is salam. and that's peace. If our religion is named peace, how can it be that this religion is such terrorist and horrible people? If you just go and you follow the teachings and you read the Quran and you read the Sunnah of the Prophet, then you're going to know what this religion is. You need to go and look at it yourself and you will find the truth. But the only way that you're going to have the truth in your heart is asking God to bring it into your heart. You must go and submit yourself, open yourself up to God. If you believe in God, open yourself up and let Him show you the right way.